Much, President Flynn. I rise to stand in solidarity again for what seems like the millionth time I've spoken on this on numerous occasions, both as an aide and now in my capacity as City Councilor. I rise in support of my neighbors in Eagle Hill who have for 8 years have said that they do not want an electrical substation in their neighborhood. This environmental injustice was placed in our community despite a call for more data to justify the need of the substation. And as a response, the Energy Facility Siting Board granted Eversource a special certificate that allowed them to bypass 14 state and local environmental permits it was struggling to get. There are significant safety concerns given its close proximity to the Chelsea Creek and a highly utilized park. Eastie bears the burden of an international airport, fuel tankers in that area where many Latinx residents live. It has been mentioned that we have one of the lowest tree canopies in the city. Adding another piece of infrastructure to an already overburdened part of the neighborhood where residents do not speak English as a first language is the definition of an injustice. This history is long, and we can add this resolution to the long list of actions taken by this council, including a 6-hour hearing in the summer of 2020 that brought Eversource to the table to respond to a demand of activists and residents in the community, a resolution passed in February 2021 in support of the non-binding ballot question, a non-binding advisory opinion ballot measure by residents pushed forth by 10 residents of East Boston, a home rule petition passed through this body in April 2022, allowing for better protections against public utility companies in our zoning code, in addition to the dozens of meetings and protests since 2016. We have exhausted all areas of advocacy and seek appeal to those at the highest levels of the state. For this calendar year, 3 months into 2023, I recognize that we don't have anything on the books that will affirm our support or this institution's support of our residents against the substation. I want to make that very clear. And so this gesture is welcome from my council colleague, Julie Mejia, and thank you. Shout out to Green Roots and CLF for their efforts, including submitting an appeal to the Supreme Judicial Court against that special environmental certificate. I'd like to point out that there is precedent to stop something like this, even though the permits have been granted by the state, and this is the crux of what we're trying to say here. In 2021, DEP rescinded an air quality permit for a biomass facility in Springfield for the fact that it had a disproportionate burden on BIPOC communities surrounding the facility. Massachusetts also recently passed a new comprehensive climate law that included stronger provisions about environmental justice communities. What I'm calling for and what we're calling for is pause. We're calling for a reset. We're calling for a review and a potential reopening of these proceedings that led the EFSB, letting Eversource run roughshod over the process and approving these 14 special permits and special certificate. I think it's fair to at least call for this delay, to maybe call for an equity audit if this substation was cited equitably, and to see if we're in compliance with this new environmental justice law that was passed at the state. So this is just one ask. There are still structural changes that we need to make to break down this system that led us here in the first place. There's currently a House docket sponsored by Representative Modero that seeks to reform the EFSB. As early as 2 hours ago, Governor Healy announced new appointees to the EFSB, including environmental standout and attorney CLF Vice President Stacey Rubin. So I'm very pleased at that. And I'd just like to continue our advocacy beyond this body, ask my colleagues to support this, and then potentially go up to the State House and stand with our residents in support of that, as well as the home rule petition that I mentioned before. So I want to give a shout out to all the advocates, my council colleagues, and thank you so much for standing with East Boston during this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Clatta.